The main character of the story is Rashid, a gay black man who has a dream of becoming a famous actor. He is forced to face discrimination throughout his whole life, and the character's emotional journey is centered around this discrimination and how he overcomes this. The characters that the story focuses on are Rashid, his parents, and Miles, his romantic interest. When the audience first meets Rashid, it is the present day. He is a successful actor, well accepted by many in the acting industry. The story flashes back to a less accepting time, the 1950s, where Rashid's life truly begins. The main themes of the story are acceptance, pride, self-acceptance, and overcoming hatred. The story will send a message of self-acceptance and happiness, and that someone shouldn't be shunned for expressing who they are.
In Act 1, we meet Rashid, a successful actor in the present day. However, the audience is not yet aware of his emotional journey. By seeing his grand success, and with the knowledge that even in the present day, acceptance of people like Rashid is almost too rare, the audience is invested in his journey and overcoming these obstacles. The story begins in the present day with Rashid showing him watching a news report on the Black Lives Matter protests in America. This triggers Rashid's memories of his past, facing racial discrimination and prejudice. We then jump back to the 1950s, where the audience meets a younger Rashid whose family is unaware of his identity. He believes that they will not accept that he is gay, and that they will not want him to become an actor. In Act 1, the initial condition is when he begins pursuing his acting career. He wants to make a difference to the acting industry by introducing the normalization of black and gay people to the stage. The inciting incident occurs when he makes the decision to come out to his parents and express his dreams of acting. This does not go well for him, due to the fact of his parents being heavily homophobic and belief that the fascination with acting is due to his sexuality. Rashid responds this with more anger, which leads to him being kicked out of his home. The argument they use is that nobody in society will accept him for who he is, and neither do they. His external motivation in Act 1 is to gain the experience as an actor and pursue his career in acting. The internal motivation, however, is to gain the respect and acceptance of his parents. The argument with his parents shows the audience his internal conflict in that he hates himself and hates society because of how he is treated by the very people he thought he could rely on.
In Act 2, Rashid has been kicked out of home. He believes the whole world has turned against him until he meets Miles. Miles is another young black man and is the romantic interest of the story, who Rashid is not immediately infatuated with. Instead, they begin as friends, and soon Miles accepts him into his home. Miles lived alone before he met Rashid, and their relationship grows naturally before any romance develops. His first interaction with Miles is the first escalation of the story, and at this point in the story, the audience is not aware that Miles is also gay. The parallels between Rashid and Miles' lives are clear to the audience, but because they're both teenagers at the time, they're very awkward and unaware. Rashid centers his acting career around his racial and sexual identity, focusing on activism and pride. This causes his career to continuously fail, as society's integrated racism and homophobia does not accept Rashid, and eventually, he cannot handle this. This causes Miles to confide in Rashid about his life. Miles tells Rashid that to keep moving forward, he must ignore the discrimination. He understands that Rashid has a level of self-doubt and self-hatred, and so he explains to him the only way to overcome his struggles, he must first come to terms with his own internal conflicts. Rashid takes in this advice and decides to tell Miles the truth about his romantic feelings towards him. This is the second escalation of Act 2, and it is a defining point in Rashid's life, which is why he is reflecting on it in the present day. Act 2 ends with the budding romance between Rashid and Miles, alongside Rashid's powerful journey to a successful career in acting.
Act 3 is set 10 years after Act 2 ends, and Rashid has been signed to a TV show portraying a character that parallels his own identity. In the 10-year gap, Miles and Rashid's relationship is even stronger. Unfortunately for Rashid, his parents still do not accept him, even though society is beginning to. His big break on the TV show has been accepted and widely loved in the LGBTQ community. However, the wider audience does not enjoy the show. The show, shining the spotlight, tackles important issues that parallel society and uncomfortable topics that Rashid felt needed to be addressed. As time progresses and the show continues to be aired, Rashid gains more attention. This is because the show is about important social issues, including fighting against racial and sexual discrimination. It is this big break and introduction into mainstream media that becomes Rashid's moment of truth in the story. Rashid's final state occurs when the story cuts back to present day of 2020, and we see Rashid and Miles, happily married, watching the breaking news of Black Lives Matter protests, and they reflect on while the world isn't yet where it needs to be, his acting career had a genuine social impact.